Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our next session where we answer important questions of life. And today we have with us again Dr. Kjell. Dr. Kjell is a trained psychologist, and we have him with us to answer questions that we have different viewers come to him asking for. Welcome, Dr. Kjell.
Thank you.
And I'm Ashley, and I'll be the host for today, asking these questions to Dr. Kjell. Kjell, we have a host of questions. The first one, when I look at it, it's about hope. And when I go through this question, it reminds me of everything that is going around the world where there is a lack of hope.
Yes, very much so.
Yep. And the question is, do we dare to hope the way the world looks like today? Is it even worth it?
I really love this question, Ashley, because it shows that people care about hope. And we all notice when we don't have hope. And of course, ordinary people, they think that hope is something flexible, something not so sure. And that's, of course, behind this question. But that is not the way the Bible is viewing hope. There we have hope as an anchor, as something foundational and stable. And that may be the difference. But of course, all people may have somebody that have died, a relative, a close friend. It happens us all, doesn't it? And then people ask, where are they? Is there really a heaven? What do I dare to hope? That's why that is such a good question.
Wonderful. That's very profound the way you put it, that there is one definition of hope, which is the worldly definition, and a completely different one, which when we look to the Bible.
Yes.
And can we look at hope in different ways?
Yes, I think we can view it in three different ways. The fool's way.
Okay.
Is the first way. The fool thinks that the hope is money and success and a good life.
Sure.
And when that fails, the hope fails entirely. So that is a foolish way of viewing hope. The other way is the disillusioned mind person who thinks a lot. And this person has really hard to get to grips with what hope really is. In my age, people feel that the older they get, this question becomes more and more important. So it fills your mind. Do I dare to hope? What is hope? And we want a definition, and we want to secure some kind of hope. Yeah.
Sure. So that leads me to the next question, which we have here. When you look about these various options or the types of hope, is there a choice that I can have when I look at hope?
Thank you for asking that. In my world, we say decision is everything.
Sure.
You must take a decision. We hear that all the time from psychologists and teachers and so on. And it is a choice.
Okay.
A person can view hope as a Christian does. Then hope is a hope for a different world, a hope for a different kind of life. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about eternal life, we talk about the quality of life, not only a length of life. And this life, this eternal life, starts here and now when a person believes in Jesus Christ. I must choose, and every person wants to still his or her longing. That hope is real in some way, and that it affects my life here on earth. And one way to do that is to be thankful for all earthly blessings. And have my feet grounded in a spiritual reality, that there is a hope that takes me beyond time. Then hope becomes something tangible, and it becomes meaningful in a person's life. So yes, to the person who asked the question, we do dare hope, to hope. Yeah.
Even in the situation that we are in.
Yes, we
Wonderful.
do.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That leads us to the next question. And this is not a new question. We have come across quite a bit, which is about meaning of life. What is the meaning of life?
As you say, Ashley, this is a commonly put question because we all want to have meaning in life, don't we? Let me quote to you what a modern literary person, André Maurois, says. He got the Nobel Prize some years ago, and here is his answer to this question. The universe is indifferent. Who created it? Why are we here on this puny mud heap, spinning in infinite space? I have not the slightest idea, and I am quite convinced that no one else has the least idea about it. Well, the meaning of life becomes interesting to all persons. And we seek the meaning of life during World War time. A psychologist was put into death cell, and during that time he lost all hope and meaning of life. But then he asked himself an important question that we all should ask ourselves. Can any situation be meaningful in life? So he thought outside of the walls of the prison, his wife and his children were living in a German town. And love makes life meaningful. So he started thinking of love. Somebody loves me. So my life cannot be meaningless. And he was rescued by the Americans from the prison in time. And then he wrote a book, What is the Meaning of Life? In order to help persons to answer this question. Life must have a meaning.
Wonderful. So the fact that there is someone
Yes.
who is loving you
becomes
one of the purpose for us to lead life.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. That takes me to the next question, and about what are we living for?
Yes. What are we living for? Are we living for our family? Are we living for our job? Some people may have some goal in life, in sports, or even military service to fill life with a higher meaning.
Mm-hmm.
But then we must ask ourselves, what happens when it doesn't give me any meaning anymore?
Yeah.
What if I lose my partner?
Yeah.
What if I lose my kids? Even if somebody dies that I love,
Yeah.
then we are really handling this question more honestly. So it's not a good answer, is it? All these ways of describing the meaning of life. We must find the deeper answer.
Wonderful. It's very interesting you put it that way, because when you talk about war,
Yeah.
what happens after the war is over.
Yes.
And I think a lot of soldiers also go through depression because they don't now know what they else are here for.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So that connects to the question about who will give me that purpose, or who can give me the real answer to the question of my meaning of life.
Thank you for asking that, because that makes us think a little deeper, doesn't it? If I am created by a personal God, that God is a person just like us, with thoughts, with feelings, with will, but the difference is that he is an eternal person. What about him having created us, having a plan for our life? Then it would be meaningful to ask, what is that plan? What is his view of the meaning of my life?
Mhm.
And that is the way we should try to answer it, I think. And then God says, I have come to give you a overflowing life. It's a statement that answers God's view of this. So that means if my life is not very meaningful, I should go to God and ask Him for a deeper answer to this question.
Mhm.
And it has been my experience throughout, Ashley. I'm old now, as you know, that people who have passed through my life seeking the answer to this question
Mhm.
have found it in a personal faith in Jesus Christ. And the meaning has come.
Mhm.
The purpose of life has suddenly become clear, and life has become more meaningful.
Wonderful.
That's the answer I would give to that.
Yeah. So turning towards God,
Yes?
who has given us the life and who has a purpose for every one of us.
Yes?
Wonderful. That takes us to the next section, where one of the questions that came across refers to a incident that happened on a television show where the host, apparently a journalist, asked the guest, "What do you regret in life?" And the answer that the celebrity or the guest gave was nothing, which puzzled, shocked the host. And she asked a follow up question: there would be something that you would regret in life?
The interesting thing, Ashley, is that this famous person looked into the TV camera with thousands of people seeing him there in the program. And he said, no, absolutely nothing.
Wonderful.
And I noticed that the TV journalist was shocked. And she said, I don't believe you.
Mm.
That you are lying.
Yeah.
This can't be that way. So suddenly something happened in front of the camera that was totally unexpected.
Yeah.
But this question was so good, and we bring it up here in our program because it's a life essential question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do we regret something?
Exactly. What is it that we regret in life?
Yeah. What is it? And then we must go deeper and ask ourselves, regret is about guilt. So if I am guilty or considered to be guilty, then I should have regret over something I have done, over something I have said. It would lead to regret. And the interesting thing is that when the Bible speaks about regret, it tells us that we are all sinners. And because that we are all sinners, we are under the judgment of God. Because sin and guilt has to be paid for. Somebody has to pay for it. And then the Bible has this wonderful news that God has sent his Son Jesus Christ to die for our sins, to pay our guilt, so that we may be free persons. So what must we then do in order that our regrets and guilt will be forgiven, that we will leave this regret behind? Only one thing. We must reach out our hand and receive the gift from God of forgiveness. I'm not sure that the TV journalist got that far.
Yeah.
But I thank her, and I thank the person who was interviewed in front of the camera for standing there answering this question. And I hope that this biblical answer can add an important dimension to
Wonderful.
that.
Well, the next question has got me excited because it is from a parent and
Yes.
going through parenthood and with all the challenges that parenthood brings.
Yes.
The question is, my teenage son lies all the time, and she wants to know why.
Well, I'm sure any parent who has this situation would want to know why.
Yeah.
Why do kids lie? Partially, it is because kids live in a different world than we do. They live in a world of girls and boys they know, in a school world. They get impressions from everything they hear from adults and from young people. And because of that, what is true may be hidden. Maybe they lie because they don't know what the truth is.
Mm.
That is one possibility, isn't it?
Yeah. I can imagine, in my days as a child, right? I was also in this dream world
Yeah.
where some of the things which were told by my parents came as an utter shock. But how do we know the extent of lying? And what should we do as a parent about it when our kids lie?
First of all, I would like to say to all parents who are listening to this, we cannot pretend to know all about it. We must never put in our mind the idea that we know all about what is going on in our children's head, because we don't.
We don't, yes. I agree.
Sometimes kids think that a lie is better than truth because it makes life easier. Sometimes you can live a lie, you may have illusions about life, and children do have more in some ages, but particularly in some early ages and in teenage.
Mm-hmm.
They live in a fantasy world. So then I must ask myself, what is more important to me as a parent? Is it that my son is lying, or is it my relationship to my son?
Mm-hmm. Very important. Yeah.
Because what really happens is that parents get out of relationship with their child because he's lying. And then we have lost two things. We have both lost the relationship
Mm-hmm.
and the communication with our son. So we must always put relationship before behavior.
Okay.
So whatever way your child behaves, the relationship is more important. So never, never put that at the stake.
Of your relationship.
That is prime importance.
Would you say that that also connects to the trust that the relationship brings, and we never want to break the trust of our child to be that persons who they should be falling back on
Yeah,
when they commit something which is not
Yeah.
a good behavior?
yeah. It is definitely related to basic trust. So we should never act in a way that we lose our trust to the kid and the kid to us. And I would like to say something more about this. Sorry. I think we should see the lying from the child's standpoint, not from our adult standpoint. And that will be a rule in all our dealings with our children. We must understand the child's standpoint. Say, for example, that your child believes that if it comes out that he has done something or said something hurting to somebody, and this will come out to you,
Mm-hmm.
you will be hurt. So instead of you being hurt, the child lies to you about it and says it has never happened, because they want to protect you from being disappointed in that.
Mm.
One thing we shall know about children, that is that they want basically to do what the adult wants.
Mm.
And that we can trust. That takes us back to the basic trust you're talking
Exactly.
about. And it all depends on what expectations do we have. Do we have expectations that our children shall be perfect?
Mm.
Then we will be disappointed again and again and again.
Yeah.
But if our viewpoint is, I'm going to love my kid, whatever he does, whatever he says, whatever attitude he has to me, then we will have patience with the things that we don't like in our children.
Correct.
And sometimes we cannot change them overnight. So my answer would be what you just said. We should build trust in relationship to children and teenagers. And that will relieve our pain as parents. Because if our children view us as parents in pain, that will not be good for the relationship.
Great. Last two questions for this session. Again, not a new question, it has come time and again. Loneliness. We have a question asking, I am terribly lonely. And she wants to know why and what is the cure.
Well, these are big questions,
Yes.
really big. We'll see how we can approach them. This is a gigantic life problem, loneliness. In Sweden, recent reports says that every fifth person living in this country is struggling with loneliness. But then I must make one thing very clear, that there are different types of loneliness. I would call the first kind to be alone. Who has not been experienced the joy of being alone?
Yeah.
We all agree
Yeah.
that being alone is not the same as being lonely.
Correct.
So when we talk about loneliness, we talk about a much more difficult situation because you are forced into it.
Mm.
And that's what makes it so terrible. So this woman, she says she's forced into loneliness. That's what I hear her say. And that makes our heart really have a pulse for her as we talk about this.
Mm.
So my answer to your first question is that loneliness is a common human experience because we are in one sense lonely in this world. And each person individually is lonely. So there is a loneliness that comes from being a living creature. But here again, God says, right after the Garden of Eden, He says, it's not good for man to be lonely.
Yeah. What is the cure to loneliness?
Well, now it gets really difficult, doesn't it? Anybody wants to know the cure?
Yes.
We all know the symptoms, but we don't know the cure. So, Ashley, what shall we say about this? Of course, there is a cure. Because God cares. He cares about our loneliness. And Peter Tchaikovsky, a Russian composer, says, nobody understands my loneliness but the lonely soul. And we would all agree that that is the way it is. You need to have experienced loneliness to really feel how painful this is. The cure for loneliness is fellowship. God created us for community. He created us to men and women, but we were not meant to be alone in this world. So this lady that asks this question needs to find community and not sit alone at home.
Mhm.
That's what is happening her. She sits alone and she complains about how lonely she is. And we feel sorry for you that you have that feeling. But you need to break out of this loneliness into fellowship.
Mhm.
Fellowship is a biblical word. It comes from the New Testament and it means to have together with other people. So that would be the cure.
Wonderful. Well, that brings us to the end of this session. We have answered some very interesting questions, and thank you for taking time to go through it, Dr. Kjell.
Thank you.
So until the next time, when we come back with more questions, thank you so much.
Thank you.